What is going on, guys? TheRealSherifM here, aka ManganasSteel, continuing my series on knife design and focusing on Arcane Design. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I am trying to get to 500 followers, and I really appreciate the help. So let's get into this guy. This is the Crawler. One of my absolute favorite knives in general, let alone one of my absolute favorites by Arcane Design. This thing has this massive Wharncliffe blade and just a lot of really cool details. As you can see, versus if you compare it to my last video, which was on the Necronaut, I opted to go with an all-black version of this. And truth be told, I kind of want to get a second one with the blasted finish and the satin blade, simply because I love this knife so much that I really want to put it in my regular EDC rotation. This is more of a safe queen for me, to be honest, with these Zircuti, or I don't know, what does he call these? Let me see on his site right here. They're Zircuti clip and shields, man. Dude, this thing is just perfection to me, honestly. As I mentioned with Arcane Design, he has this very angular, geometric-inspired, brutal sort of style, and it is one of my absolute favorites. It just makes for a visually compelling knife design that is really refreshing in this very stagnant sort of knife industry where we just keep seeing the same things over and over again. But let's kind of look at this from a design perspective. So the blade shape is wonderful. I mean, really, this thing is nice and thick, but with this swedge here that he did right on the leading edge, it allows that tip to come down to a very thin point while not being overly delicate. That's combined with this sort of primary bevel here that's about this tall, and that actually, I mean, in theory, he could have gone much taller with the primary bevel, but I really appreciate that he didn't. It just serves to make this thing that much more functional and really is nice to use and nice to handle. Even though, I mean, I did say this is more of a safe queen, I of course have used it. Every single knife that's even in my saves, I have used to some degree. It's just there are some that I kind of shield from my more abusive habits. And this is one of them. This is just something that I like to bring out on dressier occasions, just because I love the pop of that Zircuti against the black. It just feels so classy, so nicely done. It's one of my favorites. Now, when you do a Wharncliffe blade profile like this, the handle shape has to be completely different. You end up having a upswept sort of trailing edge here in order for the blade to properly nestle into place. And as you can see, Israel has done a amazing job here of getting that blade to handle ratio absolutely maximized. That is in contrast to some of the mass manufactured knives, as you can see here, even with my RUCKUS, they could have gotten a few more millimeters out of the overall length of this thing. but they tend to be conservative with that for safety purposes. But when you have a well-versed designer such as Arcane Design, and they really plan out every detail very well, they actually can take it to the leading edge, or to the trailing edge as close as possible. And this is something I should clarify. Like, for me as a designer, I actually spec that. I actually spec it to do the exact same thing, to come all the way to that end there. But, you know, a lot of the factories will actually kind of neuter that for, you know, safe practices, which I don't really appreciate that much. And it's one of the reasons why it's worth, you know, going directly to a designer and buying the knives that they put out under their own name, because you are getting the knives truly as they fully intended to them to be, without any minor changes like that. It makes a bit of a difference. So in nestling, as I was saying, this Wharncliffe blade, you have a very atypical handle shape versus what we're used to. So if we were to look, for example, at, let's say, like this VLD by Peter Carey, you can see that a lot of the mass is actually biased down here, and you have this nice slope that continues from the spine all the way down. And this gives you the traditional sort of knife positioning, where you continue from this sort of ridge in the hand to this curve. It kind of creates this line with the sort of natural bend in your hand, and it gives you this little muscle group right here, a place to nestle against the back, and this muscle group here, a place to nestle on the front, and that's what provides you with a good grip. So it's an interesting challenge when doing a Wharncliffe to be able to achieve a similar result. And what's really interesting, I feel, about the crawler is that he actually achieved that. The positioning, or the extension of the spine all the way out to this end here, and this slight bit of downturn, really achieves a very similar effect. Like, I can actually get this muscle group nestled perfectly right on this downturn section here, and this muscle group right here nestled right against the top. I don't know if you guys are really seeing that as clearly as I'm trying to communicate it, but it allows for a very positive and consistent grip, especially in a hammer grip with this guy. And then if you look, you know, this is also something incredibly challenging. He has this finger relief right here for the two fingers, just like the Necronaut does. But then he has this flat section and this, you know, upturned section here, and they're expertly judged. I mean, my ring finger falls perfectly on that flat, and my pinky falls perfectly on this upturned section. So there's literally not a point where my hand does not fit perfectly on this knife. And it's part of what makes this one of my all-time favorite knife designs, let alone just all-time favorites from Arcane. It's just really, really well judged. And even when you start grabbing this guy in the pinch grip, this little flat, you know, lines up with the back half of your hand and nestles in, so you can do utility draw cuts very easily. And with this chamfering right here, it gives you a nice reassuring place to really put your fingers on the primary bevel and then pull against the chamfered edge to have maximum knife control. So it really does work in a lot of different positions, different grip styles. Again, saber, hammer, reverse, pinch, all of it. It just is a really well judged knife design. And that's one of the things that is, signature Arcane Design. Somehow, with all of the geometric sort of surfacing, he achieves these excellent ergonomics. And I don't know of anybody who has truly ever criticized any of his ergonomics, because in my opinion, they really can't, unless your hands just don't fit this knife, which is, fair. Not every knife is going to be a perfect fit for everybody else. I mean, maybe if you had like really small hands, it may not work for you, but if you have medium to extra large hands, I don't see why this knife wouldn't fit your hands very well, personally. Now, as far as other details are concerned, this is one of my favorites. He did this little relief right here, which just gives the butt of your thumb, if you want to kind of like choke back and not be on top of the jimping, it gives your thumb a nice place to like pinch and really have fine control of the knife. In particular, you feel like you can control the tip exceedingly well when you're back here, and then when you need a bit more power, you can like line up on the jimping. And it's just such a subtle thing that, is so effective and is so nice in the hand for actual use. I'm really surprised, again, that we don't see more details like that. Now, with this knife, he did his smaller flipper tab like we saw on the Necronaut. And again, we have the relief cutouts right here. Let me see if I can really capture those with this black knife. There we go, that's the right angle. And again, makes this just a pleasure to flip. But for me, my favorite aspect is the hole. I'm a big reverse flick fan. It's even when I have, thumb studs like I do on the RUCKUS, I do tend to reverse flick it more than anything. I mean, it just is what comes naturally to me. Once you start reverse flicking, it's truly hard to go back. And it's really well judged. The position, the size, and shape of the aperture here is just excellent. It truly is. And it makes this just a really, really nice knife to deploy in the reverse flick. And I've heard some people, I believe Derek from Weeby Knives, he didn't enjoy it as much as I did. But for me, this is really like one of my favorites. And it further endears this knife to me as something that I really enjoy carrying, using, fidgeting with, everything. Like, it's just, it's really, really well done. Also, if I'm not mistaken, it is a bit thicker. I could be wrong. But to my memory, without the calipers on me, it is a bit thicker than the Necronaut, which, again, this is something that I've talked about in the past. The relationship between handle height versus width, I feel, is exceedingly well judged on this particular knife. And it just makes this thing feel very controllable in the hand. And every aspect of this is just very, very well judged. So for me, the crawler, like, hands down, is probably my favorite Arcane Design knife. I knew that I was going to like it the second I saw it, which is why I went for this really sort of like premium, you know, setup, or what I consider to be a premium setup, the all black with the zirconia details. And believe it or not, this is my only knife that I have any zirconia on, and I really, really dig it. It's very cool, very nice material, and definitely I loved seeing it oxidize and change color from the time when I opened up the packaging. And I do feel that like that blue and black detailing just complements this knife so much. So I don't really have much else to say on this knife. I mean, nice cutting edge, nice geometry, beautiful tip, phenomenal ergos, great aperture, well judged details in every regard, really nice long back spacer here. And I'm a big fan of the customizability, as I mentioned in the Necronaut video, that Arcane offers with these shields and pocket clip options. And, oh, here's one difference, for example. You can see he changed the attitude of the pocket clip here. This kind of tilts down, whereas the Necronaut kind of tips up. And it does not negatively affect the feeling in the hand, actually, at all. I mean, you know, the Arcane Design pocket clips are all very good. Like, you kind of know they're there, but really once you start using the knife, they disappear in the hand, and that change didn't affect that at all. And I'd love to hear from Israel if he initially did it with it kind of tilting up, and he maybe found that it created a hot spot and he reversed it. That's why it's different. Or if he was just going for a different aesthetic. I'm not entirely sure, but hope you guys like this.